Georgie Fleming is an honorable mention.
We also wanted to thank the French teacher, that's Mr., and I'm going to mess up the last name, it's Appa, can you pronounce it? Apostola. And his mother who came and to see him get his award tonight. And I have my French interpreter here who is...
Not really sure what she wants to say.
Congratulations.
Okay. Félicitations Ethan, et j'espère que tu pourras aller en France sous bientôt pour continuer ton français. Félicitations professeur, merci beaucoup.
The next order of business, oh, thank you. Next order of business is 3.2, which would be the recognition of the New England Dairy Council and Farm Fresh Rhode Island contest winner. In partnership with the New England Dairy and Food Council, Rhode Island Farm to School team recently held its third annual dairy contest, which was open to all Rhode Island elementary and middle school students, grade K through 8. Students were invited to submit original artwork or stories that answer the question, why do Rhode Island dairy farms rock? The winner, Adriana Fernandez, won a statewide contest held by the New England Dairy Council and Farm Fresh Rhode Island to write and draw about the life of a Rhode Island dairy farmer. Adriana is a first grader at Pell Elementary School and won a field trip to Wright's Dairy Farm in North Smithfield, Rhode Island, a local dairy party pack, and calf visit to her school. So we congratulate Adriana on her accomplishments. Thank you. We'll just skip over for a moment as let some of the boys that are coming from practice. Most of the track and field are here now, so. Okay, we'll go to 3.3 then. Mr. Leary will present the certificates. The Rogers boys outdoor track and field team completed an undefeated regular season with a record of 12-0 in the Eastern Division. Their accomplishments include Eastern Division championships, Class C Injury Fund Championship, 4th place at Freshman States, runners-up at the JV State Championship, Small Schools Championship at Hendricken Invitational, 4th place at Varsity State Championship. In addition, 7 RHS Rogers High School athletes qualified for New England and 4 qualified for Nationals. So the Rogers Outdoor boys, as I call you up, come up, get your certificate, and you'll blank us out like the sun here in front of us. So first one is Benjamin Adams. Lucas Bonds, Luis Bentoncourt, Sam Bond, he qualified for Nationals as well, New England's as well as Nationals. Otero Canales, Rodrigo Canales, Cameron Chin, Graham Clower, DeMar Conlon. Okay, oh, and Graham also qualified for New England. Okay. Angelo Cuevas, Will Doherty, Joel Dupra, Ronald Edelin, Juan Festopoulos, Franz Ellison, Jordan Tyrese Ellis, he qualified for freshman state champion, he was a freshman state champion in the 110 hurdles. Will Foley, Andres Guzman, Parker Hagan, Ian Hall, who qualified, he was a varsity state champion in javelin as well as New England and qualified for New England's and Nationals as well. And I believe for his age group, you are 4th in the world ranked currently? Yep. Ian, is that correct?
4th in the
He's at
world.
the All-State banquet tonight.
Okay. Peter Hepter, Khalil Jones, Colton Kenny, Neil Louis Nielsen, Nicholas Lockhart, Damon Madison, Caden Medeiros, Ty Medeiros. Ty was third team All-State for the triple jump and qualified for New England's as well. Jose Medina, Ezra Montero, Ezra's also going to Nationals as well. Brian Neal, qualified for the New England as well as the Nationals. Cordell O'Brien. Lorenzo Olson Sherman, qualified for New England as well. Osiris Para. I can no longer see, so I'm just going to keep calling. Keyshawn Pemberton. Eldwin Peru. John Rangel. Logan Ratcliffe, qualified for New England as well as Nationals. Jamal Reed. Kyle Rodricks. Last one. I'll read the rest of the names in a little quicker because they deserve recognition. So we had Kyle Rodricks, Nequan Sampson, William Surth, Jaleel Thomas, who qualified for JV state champion. He was a JV state champion in the discus. Dwight Williams, Donovan Wright, Bobby Zella, and we have the head coach, Andrew Martucci, and volunteer coach, Jared Umbadi. Big round of applause for the boys on their accomplishments this year, and good luck as you go out into New England and Nationals.
Before we go, Mr. Chairman, two things. I normally never do this. My voice is gone for all the years in the gin mills, but, I was a former co-captain of Rogers track team, so it's appropriate back in the 60s. But I'd like to have the coach say a few words, and if you'd like to, buddy.
All right, I just want to start off with saying that, this was that senior group that you wait around for. This is my 14th year coaching, and this has been the biggest senior, most productive senior group I've ever had. I'm going to miss these guys. Got one meet left with a couple of them. It's gonna be sad when they're gone, but I know they'll come back and visit. They've definitely passed on a lot of knowledge and experience to the young ones, and we have a lot of young ones coming back next year. I think we're going to be over 50 again. So hopefully we can continue success and stand up in front of you again next year. Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck, guys. So the next is 3.5, the recognition of the Rogers High School baseball team, and I'm going to step over to the podium to hand these out. So the Rogers baseball team this year defeated Exeter West Greenwich on June 4th to win the Division III championship. This was the first baseball championship for Rogers High School since 1971, and it was a big feat for the boys because I know that they only had 2 losses this year, and they were both to Exeter West Greenwich. So for them to beat them in the championship 2 straight games was a good accomplishment for the boys. So we'll start with Isaiah Bryant. Okay. Jacob Smith. Ian Glynn. Edwin Conley. He was also, Wynn was also second team all division. Michael Weaver. Michael Weaver was also second team all division. Luke Laviger. Brian Gredner. Dylan Stahl, one of the captains, and he was also a Golden Glove Award winner. Logan Ratcliffe, first team All-Division. Ryan Crowley, also a captain and first team All-Division as well. William Lavinger. Liam Marvell. Liam was a second team All-Division. Jack Gomes, also one of the captains. He was also the Championship Series MVP and Division III MVP as well. Matthew Fredicelli Cook. And Justin Piva. The head coach is Matt Kessler. He was Division III Coach of the Year and assisted by Coach Joseph Flippo. So if you want to say a few words, Coach, congratulations.
So thank you for having us tonight. Appreciate that. So happy to get these boys the recognition that they deserve. It's a small group that we have, but just a fantastic group of kids. The best thing that I can say about them is that they're coachable. They bring a great attitude and effort to practice every day, and that showed in our season. We also found out some further recognition today that Jack Gomes, who was the Division III Player of the Year, was also voted All-State as well. So that's tremendous. That's an unbelievable achievement. For those that aren't that familiar with our program, we have 15 guys, and in Division III, with all the talented baseball that we have in the state, that's some major recognition. So that's a great job. It just further shows that the leadership and the talent that we were able to have out of Rogers High School, and to bring it home after 48 years is just a tremendous accomplishment for these boys, and awfully proud of them. Thanks again.
And I just want to add, I just flipped the sheet over, and it was my omission that the manager of the baseball team is Ethan Mello. I don't think he's here tonight, but if he were, I just wanted Ethan to get his recognition as the manager. So, thank you, guys.
Good job. Good job. Good job. Congratulations. What is GMC on the back of the hat?
Next order of business is 3.6. It's recognition of the Rogers High School robotics team. The Rogers High School robotics team, Team Odin, went to the 2019 Sea Perch Challenge at the University of Maryland. There were 199 teams from across the globe. The Rogers Team Odin took a third-place trophy at the event, STEM Science at its best. It was a huge amount of work to qualify and to attend the event. Members of Team Odin from Rogers were Carolyn Florence, Pearson Garcia, Rose Christophas, Elena LaHood, Nathan Murphy, Brandon Polig, Owen Sibia, and Brooklyn Wakefield. And the team was coached by Coach Scott Dickerson.
I want to thank my great team for coming through again this year. Only announced at the competition was their third place finish in one event, but in the overall challenge, Team Odin came in second place. So it was really a great accomplishment.
Thank you. Congratulations, guys and girls, boys and girls.
Good job.
3.7 can be omitted this evening, leads us to 3.8. It's a gun-free schools resolution. The Rhode Island Coalition Against Gun Violence is requesting the support of the Rhode Island school committees and city town councils to adopt a resolution endorsing the legislation to keep guns out of school. So there's a resolution provided along with this.
Yeah. So, want the second
Good.
motion? I'm so moved to accept the resolutions. And I second.
Okay, so there's a motion to accept the resolution and seconded by, made by Mrs. Boland, seconded by Louisa Boatright. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Leary?
is this, we taking action on this, or is this, I don't understand what the-
No, I don't understand.
Yeah.
I have
you're
the same.
right.
It's a resolution under, it's not under an
Should
action
have been
item.
under an action, yeah.
So it shouldn't be a motion, and
Good point.
We support the resolution.
I would defer to Mr.
Can we
Mr.
make a
Galvin.
motion on this to accept these and vote on them
You
and
could just
support?
move to receive it.
Just to receive.
Okay, so the motion's been made to
Most
receive
bills.
and seconded by Mrs. Boatright, made by Mrs. Boland. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any of those opposed? Motion to accept is,
motion to receive.
motion to receive is approved. Next one is presentations, individual learning plans, and I believe Mr. Moynihan from Rogers is here to give us a brief presentation on individual learning plans.
I think I can see it.
Not there, not where it's at, we can't.
Okay, so this year, just to give some background a little bit for those who aren't familiar with what an individual learning plan is, it's a Rhode Island Department of Education mandate that all schools with students from grade 6 to grade 12 are to implement by 2021 an individual learning plan. It goes way back to, I think, 2005 that we were supposed to have individual learning plans, but the state has chosen 4 different digital platforms to choose from, and each school in the state's to choose one of these platforms, pilot a program, and then work to full implementation by 2021. So at Rogers, we've picked a product known as Zello. We were using an earlier version called Career Cruising this year, but we're going to migrate to the newer version, Zello. We actually have a webinar tomorrow where we're going to do some of that work. We've been working with the high school and the middle school together, along with the support of Newport. Elise Adams has been helping us out. She has some professional experience where adults have similar plans when she was working in industry. As well as Kim Bean, the assistant superintendent. She's been working and supporting us with this initiative. We've had a lot of training. We've had some webinars. We've gone to some statewide meetings. We've joined a cohort that is supported by a Rhode Island fellow, school counseling fellow. She's been at this work for the whole year. And we've joined this professional learning group. We've gone 4 times to meet with them and done some networking and some collaborative work with them. We've had multiple meetings between Rogers and Thompson staff as well in this initiative. So the focus of the pilot, at the high school, we've used 2 formats to try and see what might work with small subgroups. We've worked during our crew with some of the 9th graders. We have an extended crew once every 6 days. We've done some lessons with the students in 9th grades. This is small group work, school counselors and a partner from the Newport Community School have helped out with this to deliver some of the lessons. We started with one English 11 class as well, and the teacher was very supportive of this, and he opened it up to the rest of the 11th grade. So we hit the majority of the 11th graders with a couple of lessons over the course of the year. There are advantages to both. The crew, it's shorter. You can't do as much in a 30-minute period. But we did find that the students were able to get familiar with it, log in, and get lessons done fairly efficiently. So that's a possibility down the road. The English classes were longer, more structured by nature, which really allowed us to go a little bit more deeply into the lessons, and we did several lessons with the 11th graders. Thompson Middle School, they focused on their advisory. They have a different structure than us, and they focused on 6th grade and 8th grade advisories to deliver their lessons during this pilot. Just a little bit more about the pilot. Some of the things that we did did an introductory lesson where the students got their logins. They logged into career cruising. They used some tools called My Plan, My Progress, assessments in careers. They did an interest inventory where they were asked several questions, and then it looked for trends and identified certain interests among, for each student, and gave them some opportunity to reflect, along with a learning style inventory. That leads to schools that interest me, where you can identify colleges that might have that do have programs that offer you a career path to some of the identified interests, and Career Matchmaker also. All these tools integrate. They save the students' information. Students can take these inventories multiple times. So some of these lessons we may only do once during their career. Others we might do annually or more to give them, as they develop and identify interests and get a little more self-knowledge, they can kind of explore a little bit more deeply there. So we realized in the network meetings that we had, the professional learning group, that we're pretty well ahead of many of the schools. Some are still deciding on which tool they're going to use, and some are right with us. And some of the relationships we made, the fellow actually in the professional learning group, she is doing middle school work. She's a middle school guidance counselor at North Providence, and they've also selected Zello. So we've made some plans to collaborate with them going forward. She's got a lot of great ideas, and Linda Moitoza actually presented at one of those meetings to just give people some ideas based on some of the work that we've done. Next year, with our schedule, we have 25-minute cruise planned, where what we hope to do is give a variety of lessons at certain times of the year, maybe monthly. We hope to train teachers on how to be familiar with it. With our one-to-one initiative, students will have computers, so they'll have access. And during a time span, we'll identify and provide crew teachers with some lesson plans that they can give to the students, and it's very it's easy enough to do on your own. And then the counselors will come in and support crews and help students to do some of this work. And then we're going to identify other classroom opportunities where there's relevant work that marries the ILP to some of the curriculum, and the counselors will go in and do some of these lessons with the students. Why do the students do it? I was just wondering. So the whole point, hopefully I'll answer most of your questions, and I'll invite you to ask me others afterward. But the whole idea is that if students can start to formulate some goals, some SMART goals, some realistic goals that to what they want to do after high school, they will use these tools to really do some self-searching, to really think about what is it that I like? What is it that I'm good at? Are these things the same? You know, are there things that I really would like to do, but my skills aren't really there yet? And it might help them to focus in on what kind of courses do I need to take in the coming years in order to go to the college of my choice that this program has, you know, brought me to. So hopefully that sparks some interest and shows some relevance between school and the future and gets kids a little bit more engaged. That's the overall objective of this. What do parents need to know about this? So this is something that parents can do with their children. The children will have access to this at all times. They can, you know, they can reflect upon this. This is a tool that will greatly help the guidance counselors to work better with the students. If they do some of this work and then the counselor looks through it and has them in for a one-on-one, they have something to start the conversation about, you know, and something to help guide them in their choices and in what they want to do down the road. Parents as well, they might hear about a college or a post-secondary training opportunity they weren't aware of through this program. They can look at job prospects in our region and elsewhere and see if, you know, it's a good idea to look down south or someplace else if that's where the jobs are. If a student really wants to live around here, you can search in many different ways. You can search by the region, you can search by the job, you can search by the college. So there's a lot of tools. What we can do as, you know, as a school department is we can look at some of this collective information as they, if we see trends in certain interests, there might be courses that we could consider adding into our curriculum as a result. If a lot of students like forensics or something like that, and we don't have something that matches that right now, that might be an avenue we would want to look to, you know, increase engagement. We can track the frequency of usage, see how often students are using this. Right now, we've only done it a couple of times, and the students tend to show interest while we're guiding them through it, but they're not going on their own, except in a few isolated cases. So the frequency is going to be important to get kids more familiar, to make it part of, to make it something that they are accustomed to using. And that's going to be a key to making this work. Some notable things about the experience that we saw. In one case, we were working with an advisory, or a crew, a 9th grade crew, and there was a student who was mainly Spanish speaking, and he was having trouble. He was new to the school. His English was not that polished as of that time. There's a click of a button and you can get it all translated into Spanish. He was falling behind, we noticed, showed him the Spanish icon, and he was able to catch right up and finish the lesson. It was great. Let's see. I mentioned earlier we're about 2 years ahead of many of the schools, so I think we really have a solid foundation and a good plan to go forward. We've already got plans. One of the people from that network is going to come to the meeting tomorrow and do the training with us. We're really excited about that partnership. My time's up. And my time's just about up. And this is the last slide here. You know, the future, we're migrating to a new version that's underway. We want to introduce to the teachers and hope that there are tools like a resume builder that students will be doing as part of their senior project. They could use this tool to help them, and they could accumulate information and credentials as they go throughout their 4 years and make the whole process a little more streamlined. Yeah, counselors will have more information to make the post-secondary planning process richer, and they'll have that information as the students come up from 8th grade to 9th grade, for example, which gives us a snapshot of what the student's been doing and what interests them before we even get to meet them. So we're excited about that accumulation of information that we really didn't have as much of before. It was much more anecdotal. It's going to be a little more concrete. Any questions?
I believe there are a couple, so we'll start with Ms. Boatright.
I just want to say I'm super excited about this, just because I think it really pulls out student interest and gets them engaged by seeing different opportunities into their future. I think that, I don't think my mic's working, but anyhow, I'm just going to speak loudly. But, you know, I think that to try to get the curriculum relevance, which we hear so much about sometimes, like to get them engaged and particularly once they get into the high school, but even in the middle school. So I'm very excited about this because I watch my own daughter as she's tried to determine her interests over time, and it evolves and changes, and I think that they really need to know that in middle school and high school, that, you know, go deep, try new things, you know, but that's what the curriculum is there for, so they can put it together, you know. And I'm glad it has, you know, it's both interests, what the career opportunities are, how it matches with further education as well as resume development. So I think it's really exciting. And I know Working Cities, which I've been working on as well, is trying to use the same product so that in the homes, the students can work, you know, with their families to also look at this. And I think as having it as a family, sort of a family effort is kind of a great thing for the schools to promote as well. So thank you. I like that presentation. Thank you.
Thanks.
Mrs. Neary?
Hi, Mr. Monahan. I'm sorry. I'm going to ask a whole bunch of questions because I don't actually understand what this is. So the presentation says individual learning plan. What is the student learning? Is this curricular? Is this co-curricular? Is this extracurricular? I don't understand.
So there's a social emotional component about it, where they learn to reflect a little bit about what they're interested in, what their skills are, what type of learning style they have. These are all relevant to their academics, to their futures, and it then teaches them about possible career paths based on these skill sets.
Okay. And 25 minutes, 4 days per week? And how would each student spend 25 minutes on this tool?
They can use it whenever they want. We're looking for opportunities to integrate this
within
into,
crew.
So crew being 25 minutes a day, 4 days a week, those are opportunities for students to do some of this work.
Okay.
That's not all they're going to do in crew. That's just an option.
And this is going to sound bad, but essentially this is a counseling tool. It's an online counseling tool.
I mean, it stems
Like it's
from
personalized, but that's what it is.
Sure. I guess
There's
you
lots
could
of
call it
fancy
that.
words, but I'm trying to figure out what is it that when the child logs on, are they getting academic content, or they're not getting any academic content? They're getting social emotional. They're getting maybe some career counseling. They're getting what is my style of learning. Those are the things they're getting. So they're getting counseling,
Yeah, it's
online,
different.
personalized.
It's reflection,
Right.
things that help them reflect about what they.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing. I just didn't understand what that meant because it says individual learning program, and I understood it to be something academic, and it isn't.
Well-
It's fine. It's necessary. I understand why they need it. I understand why it's helpful from middle school to high school. It's just I wasn't understanding it the way it's
Gotcha.
worded. The types of individual learning plans I've seen are academics, which are self-paced depending on the subject. So math, English, Spanish. So
Yeah,
that's
no,
what I thought
this-
this was, and it isn't.
This is more to help
It's
them
just
understand
career.
why we're telling them to take these classes, and to hopefully help them understand which choice of the classes
Right.
they can choose, which ones make sense based on some
Right.
of the feedback they're getting,
Right. No, thank you.
things like that.
Yep. Okay. And it's not super expensive.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next order of business is public comment. Seeing as I don't think there's anybody from the public here, I doubt there's anybody signed up, but I'll ask anyhow. Next order of business is action items. Action item 6.1 is a request for approval of policy 6433 on academic achievement. This is the second reading. Is there a motion to approve it on the second reading?
So moved.
Motion made by Mrs. Boland. Is there a second?
Second.
Dr. Flowers?
Well,
I'm sorry, Mrs. Neary, I'm sorry. Mrs. Boland made the motion, seconded by Mrs. Neary. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Request, 6.2 is request for approval of policy 5120, student residency, on the second reading. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
As presented. Motion made by Mrs. Boland, seconded by Ms. Boatright. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item is 6.3, request for approval of policy 5160, student attendance on the first reading. Is there a motion to accept the policy as presented?
So moved.
Made by Mrs. Boland, seconded by Ms. Boatright. And since it's the first reading, I will have Dr. Flowers from the Policy Committee explain the changes to the policy.
Thank you. It's a very minor change. I think, it appears to me that there was one insertion that was passed over when this was changed. Several years ago, the Rhode Island law changed where it said every child who has not completed 16 years of life, they had to be 16 years old, they could have signed themselves out. And then it was changed to the age of 18, provided they had not already graduated. And in one paragraph, someone forgot, I guess, to change it from 16 to 18. So that's just one minor change. Further down, it talks about dealing with attendance when the attendance officer is unable to secure the attendance of any child. They mentioned also either public or private. We don't deal with these policies do not deal with the private schools. It was just deleting the phrase either public or private. And then further down, where it mentions about students will be encouraged to stay in school, but if they leave, these reasons have to be given, and in the form of a brief exit report, instead of shall, we said will be maintained by the office, and it must be approved by the superintendent. And that's about the only change. It was a paragraph deleted that was, it's not appropriate right now. It's just not needed right now. So this is just some neatening up some of the language here.
Thank you. Are there any?
It's bringing it up to date.
Thank you. Any questions on the policy?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Leary.
I will not be supporting this. I spent a lot of time talking to state senators when they passed this 18-years-old. I'm not a fan of having the kids with our population to 18 years old. I wanted to stay where it was at, so I can't support it, even though it's a change by the state.
Could I just respond that it has been changed? And
Right,
I mean,
I know.
this just makes our policies in line with that, that's all. So it is what it is, whether we,
I understand that.
yeah.
Thank you. Mrs. Neary.
Just a question on just clarification, that final sentence on the third paragraph,
Okay, let me get back up to it.
will be maintained?
Okay, let me just get down. Oh, yes, go
Right,
ahead.
will be maintained for planning purposes and must be approved by the superintendent.
Right.
Does the report have to be approved by the superintendent, or is the exit being approved by the superintendent? It's just clarification on language. What is being approved by the superintendent?
The recording of.
The recording.
All that, yeah.
Okay, it was on
Recording meaning,
the brief
keeping
report,
track,
okay.
yeah.
It just seemed a little unclear, but it's fine.
yes, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Hey,
Next motion is, next request is 6.4, request for approval of policy 4772, social media policy.
I'd like to make that motion. So, I move that we approve this, this new policy after the recommendation. So approve it tonight, but then we would like the lawyer to look it over and make sure that it meets all the requirements.
So there's a motion to approve on the first reading pending the review by Mr. Galvin, the legal counsel for the school committee. Is there a second to that motion? Ms. Boatright, any discussion?
Yes.
Dr. Flowers?
Okay, this particular policy concerning the use of social media, and it affects everyone involved in the school system, including those of us sitting here. This has been kicked around a lot, really, quite a bit, because every time we turn around, there's more social media developing. And I would encourage my colleagues here to go over this, take time before we have our next regular meeting where we would be hopefully getting a second reading, and just look through it. If you have any questions, get them to me, and then if it's accessible on board docs for the public, if anyone has questions, any other of the personnel, we are always reaching out also to the people who are working with the media and with our students also. It's a case of being responsible stewards of the social media and looking at the positive uses of it, and also what could possibly be something negative. Some of the items in this are even referenced in other policies, but it takes a little while to go through it. And it's interesting to note, as with a lot of other things, as soon as you believe you have everything all lined up, something new comes along, which is quite often why we'll say including but not limited to. People who are on the policy committee, and you hear me on other points too, I'll say, I don't want the language to be ambiguous. I want it to be very, very clear. I would rather we take a little time to make sure everyone that this pertains to understands what is required of all of us. So, okay, thank you.
I do have a comment.
Mrs. Boland?
I do believe that we have not changed the policy. I don't think it's legal to bring your phone in school. So we might want to,
Yeah, let's look at that.
that policy still is in there, I believe. So we just might want to look at that. I personally don't really like phones in school, and I believe it has changed the entire culture in our high school and our middle school. And I do believe we need a policy because we also have access to, computers in the classroom, but that's just something else we need to look at because it's kind of an oxymoron.
Any other discussion?
We can discuss a lot of that in the committee meeting, the policy committee meeting. All right.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next is 6.5, request for approval of execution of Studio Jade contract. Is there a motion to accept the contract as presented?
So move.
Made by Dr. Flowers. Is there a second? Ms. Boatright, is there any discussion or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Next is 6.6, food service agreement renewal. Is there a motion to accept
So
the
moved.
food service renewal as presented? Motion made by Mrs. Boland. Is there a second?
Second.
Dr. Flowers, any discussion on the food service agreement?
Mr. Chairman, could Mrs. Boland give a brief explanation of it for the public?
Sure, Mr. Leary, if Ms. Boland would like to.
So we are in our, I believe, 4th year of the contract, and we are allowed to have renewals. It is a great deal of work to go out for a new RFP. Our food service company actually works very closely with us, trying to accomplish all of our goals, and they've done an incredible job over the last few years, adding, free breakfast at the elementary school, adding suppers to the middle, high school, and elementary school, reaching out to community partners, and we have a very good relationship going. They help us try to resolve the issues with the with outstanding lunch balances, and in this contract, they also, I don't know if you've read it, but they guarantee us that we will have it's called a guarantee is what it's called. When this year it's gonna be $60,333 that we will end up with after all the bills are paid. Okay, so that guarantee then is used that money's to be used to improve kitchen equipment and promotional things in the cafeteria. So, and that money's separate, it's called Fund 60. So that's where we are with that. Any questions?
Yes.
Mrs. Neary. Oh, sorry, Mr.
Go ahead,
Leary.
Mr. Go ahead, sorry.
No, Mr.
No, go ahead.
Mr. Leary.
Ms. Boland, could you explain what's the total contract for the public, so how much it costs?
That I would not be able to do off the top of my head. The contract, it was listed in here, basically they get paid, let me think, 12 cents for every meal they prepare. And they also get a managing fee of .04, I believe, of whatever they, so that's added on that we have to pay them above and beyond, what the cost of the meal is. So that's where they make their money.
Mrs. Neary had a question, I believe.
Yes. The $60,000 guarantee,
Yes, it is.
how is that different from the outstanding balances that we have?
Okay, so they're guaranteeing that they will make for the district $60,000. The fact that we have outstanding balances is on us. It's not on them. So basically, and you cannot use that $60,000 to pay your outstanding balances. They're two separate accounts. The outstanding balances have to, when you declare them as bad debt, when you can't collect the figure, when you say you can't collect them, you have to take that money out of Fund 10. It cannot come out of.
Which is what for layman's, for regular?
For
person,
layman,
what's
that would be your
what's
general
10?
fund, general fund. Fund 60 is a special fund that they have that is just for the food service account.
Okay, so that guarantee that we are receiving is out of a separate account than the money that is owed, and the two cannot be mixed.
No,
Okay, so one cannot pay for the other.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, what happens if Chartwells does not make the money that they said
They
would?
have to up to, is it 30,000? It's been 4 years since I read the agreement, but I think it's up, they have to make up the difference. If they don't make that money for our district, they have to make it up until 30,000. Now, there also is one thing that's in there, if in fact unusual things happen during the year. So like this year, we had 5 days short because of the electric, the gas thing, then they may be able to adjust that a little bit because they had 5 less days to work with.
No, they
But
got them
did-
back.
What?
They got them back. They got
They-
those days back because we had to make them up.
Okay, so they got them back, so that didn't happen. But if something unusual happens, then there would be an adjustment, but it would be pretty minor.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Mr.
One
Leary.
question, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Ball, is this the last year, is a 3-year contract and 1-year extension, is that what this is?
No, there are 2 more years, is it 5, it's
We can go 5 years, I believe.
go 5 years, so that it's an extension this year, an extension next year, if we so choose, and then we'd have to go out for a rebid.
But it's 3-year contract technically by state law, correct?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
With 2 one-year extensions.
Yep.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is 6.7, request for approval of the Mass Insight contract. And I believe Dr. Bean is here if we have any questions. Is there a motion to approve as presented to you this evening?
So moved.
Dr.
Second.
Flowers, seconded by Mrs. Boland. Any discussion, Mr. Leary?
Yeah, for the public and the press, could Mrs. Bean explain what Mass Insight is briefly?
Sure. Mass Insight is an organization that helps support us with professional development, coaching, mock lessons, mock exam opportunities for students. So it's professional development for the teachers as well as opportunities for our students that are taking the AP classes at Rogers.
Any other questions for Dr. Bean?
Yes.
Mrs. Neary?
Okay. Thank you. A few questions. So how many years have we been using this program?
I believe it was definitely started before I came on to my position in school year 17, so I believe they started to contract with Mass Insight school year 15.
Okay, and how do we know it's working?
Well, one of the things that we look at is the number of students who are scoring a 3 or above. Also, the development of more AP courses. So we're looking at it at 2 ways. So, you know, we have room to grow in terms of the number of students that are scoring a 3 or above on the AP test. But we're also opening it up to more children. So from school year 17 to school year 18, we more than doubled the number of students that took the AP test.
So how many is that? What's
So
that
in
number?
school year 17, we only had 69 students taking AP classes.
And they
in
can
school
take them
year-
starting, they can take them starting 9th grade, AP courses?
No,
Or
they start
10th?
in 10th.
They start in 10th, so that's, okay. So we had 60, and then how many, so 17, 18?
In school year 18, 116, and this year we're about 130. The other thing that we changed too is that if a student signs up for AP classes, they have to take the AP test, whereas before that was not, it wasn't an option. They could take the class, but not take the test.
Okay.
So we did change that. So between having more children having the opportunity to take AP and also making the AP test mandatory, you know, we did see a decline in our number of students that scored a 3 or above.
So is this Mass Insight, this AP course, is that the same as somebody would be able to buy privately? So if because is it helping, is it a testing prep course, or is it, right?
It's a variety.
So
It's a
what- yeah,
variety
what does it do? Yeah.
Sure. So
What does it do?
it kicks off in the summer. Teachers have the ability to go up for PD up in Massachusetts, intensive PD, and then they also do a retreat in October. They do lesson studies with the teachers. They come down, they do model lessons with the students and the teachers. They do mock exams for the students. They also participate, you know, with other districts doing the mock exam. So, for example, this year we had 2 of our AP teachers take advantage of the fall professional development. We had 41 students involved in the student studies session that runs on Saturdays, and some of our teachers help assist and present with that training. We had 148 students part of the mock exam, and you know, each department continually updates Mike, Mr. Monahan, and Jared Vance and myself on how they're using Mass Insight. It definitely, you know, I've seen a big increase in how the teachers are taking advantage of the opportunities with Math Insight, particularly doing the lesson studies with the facilitators from Mass Insight.
So is it mandatory for every teacher who teaches an AP course to use Mass Insight?
It should be.
But it is not at the moment.
It should be.
Okay.
I have a question.
Mrs. Bowen,
Yeah.
just a second, you'll just have to go over there and I'll let you speak next.
Well, first of all, I'm glad that we're increasing the number of students having access to rich curriculum. And it does change the dynamics. You don't have as many kids passing, but that's okay because they're exposed to it. And I'm glad that we're doing that. But you said the number, what was the number this year we had? 100?
130.
148.
148. Is that the number of tests that were taken or the number of kids?
That's the
Because
number of students. So
some of them take 2 or 3.
absolutely.
Okay, my other question, though, is that the cost of taking those tests, so we've been paying for them, correct?
The past last year and this year.
Right,
Now,
because
we get a reduced rate
For
for
free and
students in
reduced.
poverty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just because that test, if in fact there was a case, you know, here in Rhode Island, and if we do, and we require them to take the test, you have to pay for it. You-
Right, and that was the decision that we made together 2 years ago.
Right. If you take it, you have to pay for it, if you're told.
Mrs. Sykert.
I'm Christy Sykert. I teach AP Biology, and I just want to know that you cut AP Biology this year because there's not enough science teachers. So. And there were the minimum number of students that we've always required to take it this year, so.
And do you know?
So there's a decrease in the science
So
this year.
have they put, do you know if they have published what they're going to do as far as a rotation goes? Because we've been talking about this rotation now for how many years? That
When
they-
there's been enough students,
You do it
we've
anyway.
offered them both. When there were enough students signed up, we've also always offered enough. So
Right.
they cut them because there's not enough teachers. Okay, just.
Mrs. Boatright.
I just, can you tell us if there's been, I mean, I'm very excited that more kids are being exposed to it, but can you also see some lifting up of the scores by doing this? By using some of this professional development and so on?
Yeah, I think in terms of looking at the data over the years, there have been certain courses that we've seen a lift, but like I said, because we opened it up, and there's a tool that the guidance department used called AP Potential, and so they can look at the PSAT scores and look at students who aren't taking AP classes, and then have that conversation with them that, you know, you would, you know, you're doing really well on this PSAT that we give in the fall, or the PSAT that we give now in the spring. You know, you definitely have the potential to do really well on an AP test, or that they're taking, you know, an honors class, or they're in the college-based class and they're doing really well too. That is another way for guidance counselors to have a conversation. But this AP Potential tool works directly with the PSATs, and so the students will pop up, and the guidance counselors will be able to guide them.
Mrs. Neary.
Still on numbers, how many, so since 17, school year 17 is when it started, how many students have gotten a 3 or higher?
Let's see. So percentage-wise, in 2017, we had 47% of our students score a 3 or higher. And this year, I mean last year, because we don't have our data from this year yet. So last year when we made it mandatory, we dipped down to 23% of the students scored 3 or higher. However, again, you know, the biggest number were those students that were scoring a 2.
Okay, and then when will we get the 2019 numbers? July, right?
Yeah, it's in the summer.
Yeah, it is in the summer, because I'm waiting for them for college students, so yeah, right. Okay, thank you.
So we can do a data dig together.
Yeah, it'd be nice. Yeah.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Aye. Nay. 6.9, request for approval of, 6.8, request for approval of EBEC Science Kit Contract. And I believe Dr. Bean is, we'll just do a motion to approve it as presented first.
So moved.
Dr. Flowers, seconded by Ms. Boatright. Dr. Bean, if you'd like to give us a little insight to it.
Sure. The East Bay Collaborative organization, we've been working with them for several years on kit resources. So these are science kits that we use K to 8. Several years ago, we adopted the Next Generation Science Standards in the district, and we've been working with EBEC on the development of the kits so that they're aligned to the Next Generation Science Standards. So right now, this contract is presenting to you, it's the refurbishment of the kits, and will also provide professional development to any of our teachers who change grade levels or are new to the district. The professional development is included in that. Right now, what I'm working with the team at EBEC on is some of our science teachers are saying, you know, so we've now, over the 3 years, we've delved into these new kits and had the training, but now we still have some questions about the kits, things that we'd like to tweak, and looking at some of the assessments. You know, we'd like to work collaboratively with other districts that are part of this organization, so in the process of working with them on some of that support. More of them coming to us and working right with the teachers in their classrooms is what I'm proposing to them.
Any questions?
Yes.
Mrs. Neary?
For grades 6, 7, and 8, because those are not elementary, do all the teachers use them?
Yes, the teachers the science teachers.
The science, right, the science
Correct.
teachers. So all
Yep.
the science teachers in grades 6, 7, 8 are using them.
Correct.
Just one? One question? I'm
Oh,
impressed. No, I meant for Mrs. Neary. You can ask all you want, Mr.
Another one
Leary.
come.
Okay, Mr.
Another
Leary.
one might come up.
I just want, what's the cost for the public?
It's,
I know, just explain to the public.
Mr. Leary, are you giving me a setup? Is that what you're doing?
No, I'm
I'm
giving the
just
public a
I'm
chance,
just-
the
I'm
press
just-
also know
I'm
what we're
just
talking
teasing you.
about. Sometimes the press sits here and we just approve things, they don't know what the hell we're talking about, so
So
I give
just-
them a chance.
So-
you know.
I do point this out each time, and it is
Yeah.
on board docs for everybody to see.
Yeah.
I mean, so they can go see it, but I don't ever mind having somebody express it, but
Yeah,
just
so-
so people know.
So for approximately 40 classrooms at Pell, 3 kits per year, it's $20,535, which is grant funded under Title I. And then for our 5 through 8 teachers, it's $7,820.
Just a quick
Mrs.
question.
Neary.
Yeah, we go, I have a question, but that's more about funding. Grade 5 is elementary, so how come it's not under Title I?
Because it's not at Pell School.
Because it's physically not located at Pell School, that's it?
Believe me, I try. It's, yeah,
That's
it's not at Pell School.
It's the location, so because our 5th graders are in a building that is not designated elementary, we cannot use Title I funds
Correct.
for this. But do we do,
Just
is
like
that true?
just like the programs I design at all the private schools, they can't use the funds for
And is
students
that
above
true
5th
for
grade.
every single thing we have the 5th graders for Title I? Like, I don't mean just the science kit, but can we not use Title I funds for our 5th graders? Any Title I funds for anything,
Correct,
because they're located at Thompson?
correct.
But the good thing is we don't get any less because it's K to 4, right? It's like we're not getting, it's not like they're subtracting the 5th grade. It's a set pot of money. So it's just divided up now between K to 4, and you'd now have to find other money for the 5th grade.
Right, which is our local budget,
Yeah,
though.
right.
Okay.
Wonderful. Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Next motion is next request, 6.9, is a request for approval of new curriculum-ready classroom math contract. And Dr. Bean was here again to talk about it. Is there a motion to approve it as presented this evening?
second.
Mrs. Neary, seconded by Dr. Flowers. Dr. Bean, if you could give us a little.
Sure. We've been involved with about 15 other districts in the state with ed reports, doing the high-quality adoption program of curriculum. We field tested 2 different curriculums that had received very high reports with ed reports. Ed reports looks at focus and coherence, rigor, and mathematical practices, and usability. So since both of the programs had very high reports, our teachers who field tested, we strictly looked at kind of our non-negotiables around both of the curriculum resources. So we had a great team, K to 5, field testing the materials. We had both vendors come down and do a presentation and gave us online support, as well as one vendor gave us actual consumables. Our areas that we looked at were supporting student learning for special populations, supporting teacher understanding of the curriculum, and supporting teacher implementation of the curriculum. So those were the 4 real focus areas that we looked at as we field tested the curriculum. We did several different lesson studies with the field test teachers, and then at the end, we evaluated both tools. Both tools came out very equal. We found that Ready Math provided a more comprehensive professional development package, and that was one of our non-negotiables working with this team. We wanted to set up a professional development opportunity, which mirrors a couple of other PDs that we're doing, where there's people doing lesson studies right in the classroom with the teaching, with the teachers and the students. It helps us with our pacing, and we've been getting a lot of feedback from the teachers that professional development feature is what teachers are really finding are really beneficial. So we are hoping to go with Ready Math. We found them very easy to work with and very responsive to our 100 bazillion questions. So.
Mrs. Boland.
Yeah, so my question is, I know this year we were forced to use many teachers had to run off their own consumables, and that's expensive. I think it was in the reading, might have been the reading program. Are we allowing for consumables for the younger kids in this program, or are we going to be running them off?
The materials, you have access to online, and then there's also a student workbook.
And we're buying the student workbook? That's my question.
We are.
We are, okay.
Yeah.
So we're providing that, because I think it ended up being probably more expensive having them Xerox it all this year. Yeah. You're right, we don't do that.
Mrs. Neary.
My question is, what was Bridges offering for $30,000 more? Because the 2 choices were Bridges and Ready Classroom, and you've chosen Ready Classroom. Theirs was in excess of $65,000. What were they offering?
So one of the things about Bridges is their professional development package was very, very expensive because they are housed in Oregon. So anytime they came down to do professional development, it added about $7,000, and the teachers, that was a strong piece that they felt they wanted the professional development, like we're providing with the Foundations phonics program, so that there's these checkpoints periodically through the year with that lesson study model right in the classroom. So, that piece definitely jacked up the price. But the other piece too was their proposal included every manipulative you would ever need, and you couldn't piece it out. So right now we're doing inventory on the manipulatives that we currently have in our old program, so that we're not, that we're going to reuse things.
Right.
You couldn't do that with Bridges. You had to get the package and the full package, and there was no veering away from the package. So,
Okay. Well, there we go then.
yeah. And there were a couple of little nuances from our evaluation tool also that put Ready just a tad bit higher than Bridges, but between the cost and the PD package.
And you're confident that they're equivalent? Essentially, they were equivalent.
Yeah, I mean, they both, we selected
teachers
these
were
because
confident.
their scores on the ed reports were very high. And there's a couple of other districts that we were part of this with.
Yeah.
They're going with Ready Math. Bristol Warren has Ready Math, so we've been in contact with Bristol Warren. They've been with Ready Math for 4 years. So we've been working with their math coaches, getting information from them as well. And Mr. Leary, Pell School will cost $20,692.40, and that's title funded. The PD piece of $6,000 will be Title funded, Title I funded.
We pay 4,000.
$6,000
We
for
pay
the
4,000.
professional development, and then Thompson will be $4,046, and that's local funded.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
not a
Leary.
question, but a comment. I will not be sponsoring this, voting for this. I haven't spent a lot of time looking at it, but being a former math teacher, I'm very disappointed with what happened in the past maybe 7, 8, 9 years with Connected Math. Connected Math came in, and a couple of us connected with it, and I think we ruined a lot of kids. I know a lot of parents complain about it, teaching new ways to do division, and all this stuff that came down with it. And I know I complain a lot, I know I vote no a lot, but I put my money where my mouth is. I sent my 6 kids through these public schools, and I feel like I know how my kids, the last ones, were just totally confused with the way math is teaching and not the basics. So I'm not sure exactly how this is going down, so I can't support it till I know more about it, what was said. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Next motion is 6.10, request for approval of the Excello agreement. And Dr. Bean, is there a motion to,
So moved.
Mrs. Boland, is there a second?
Second.
Dr. Flowers? Dr. Bean, if you'd like to give us a little snapshot of that, please.
Sure. I want to thank Mike Monahan for stepping up to the plate. He was supposed to have a little team, but things came up for the other people on our team. So we've been working with RIDE and the cohort, looking at the 4 different tools that RIDE has offered or recommended. And we found through a lot of back work with Elise Adams, I can't thank her enough for all the help that she's given us on working with our IT department and working with the Zello company. So she's really been amazing. But the individual learning plan is an opportunity starting in grade 6. We've talked, we presented last year about the high school students that went down to Thompson and talked with the 6th graders with the theme, if I had known what I know now, as a 6th grader. And so that's really why it's so important that we start these individual learning plans in grade 6, so they start to get a sense of, who they are, what are the things that they like. It is somewhat of a counseling piece, but it's really to connect the dots for students. And so we're finding that Zello, it's very engaging. It's kind of has kind of a Facebook-y look to it. The students start off taking a personality inventory and a career inventory, and then they start to connect the dots on that. There are only specific goals from the social emotional curriculum at RIDE that each student has to perform from 6th grade to 12. And what we've done is crosswalked those social emotional activities with what Zello can offer. And the ease of it, the fact that it saves, the students can log right back on and get right to where they had left off. It has a nice dashboard for the students, so it shows them, like it tracks what activities they've done. We front load the activities based on the grade level. So we've done a lot of crosswalk with the state and with the team, with the guidance staff at Thompson and Rogers have been really great about working on this pilot with different grades at Thompson and then the 9th and the 11th grade. So I know that the work moving forward with Rogers and Thompson is to create a calendar for teachers to be able to select the different activities that will all be front-loaded into the program during the advisory and the crew time. So, like I said, it's very user-friendly, and even though the time, Mike mentioned, the time might be an issue, it really isn't, because the students can save, and then they can get back to it the next time they want. We did track some students, and they were using it at home, so that was exciting. And there's definitely we'll walk parents through the login for the parents to be able to have access to it too. So it's a nice little tool, and finally having something that we can really push through 6 through 12.
Ms. Boatright.
Yeah, I just have to say again, because I think it's critical, and I know what Mrs. Neary said about not understanding it, but it's so critical for young people to see opportunities, career opportunities, because you're so limited to just what your family has and your relatives and your neighbors. And so I just think it's a really helpful tool to engage kids in different curriculum activities and trying new things because of their interest areas. So I think it's a great thing to move forward with. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. I just noticed it in looking at it before tonight that it was a 12-month subscription. Do we plan to promote possibly the families and children using it during the summer, or they can have access? Is it web-based so they can do it from home, or do they have to be at a school computer?
No, they can do it at home, but we haven't rolled out, there's a lot of back end. That's why we were doing a pilot to make sure the Aspen upload with Zello, that all the dots are connected. So, there's still work in terms of now that we're going from the pilot to 6 through 12, that it's going to go, I think we have a date of August 1st that this is going to happen. So we need to make sure everything's working before we go totally live.
I didn't mean for this summer, but I mean as we go out. I noticed it doesn't
okay.
expire until August 31st of 2020. So that next summer, do we plan to make them aware that it is something that they have access to?
We'll do that in the fall at open houses. Is the plan right now for the middle and the high school to share the information with all families.
Only because I noticed it was a 12-month subscription. So.
And for Mr. Larry Thompson is $1,107.50, and Rogers is $2,000. And these are really low fees for the amount of licenses we get, and it's because it was an RFP put out by the state, and these vendors agreed to keep these prices really low. And this is funded by Title IV.
Any other questions?
This is also a requirement by RIDE that we have a solution like this too, right?
Correct.
It's one of the fluff requirements.
Okay. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Next request, 6.11, is request for approval of fiscal year 1920 frontline education contract. Is there a motion to accept as presented this evening? Ms. Boatright, seconded by Dr. Flowers. Dr. Bean, if you could give us a snapshot of that, please.
Sure. Frontline is the management tool that we use for absences and professional development, and also our evaluation tool. So this is how teachers and Council 94 are able to go in, and administrators, and put in their absences, and then also put in their reason codes. So we code all our professional development so that we're making sure it's being charged to the right grants. So that's one way that we use this tool. It's also a way that we can make sure that we're assigning substitutes, so teachers go on and create their absence, and then a substitute picks up the absence through Frontline, also known as ASOP. And it's also where we do our evaluation through Frontline as well.
Mrs. Neary.
So since the software is the one in which we enter all the information, is it possible to pull out substitute data on there, meaning how many substitutes we've gotten over the course of the year, and then break out those substitutions, whether it's professional development, see if there's a reason code you mentioned, right? So would we be able to see over the course of one academic year, so September 1st through June 30th, how many substitutes we've used and what we've used them for? Is that possible?
Yeah, I can talk with Erin Clark, HR,
Okay.
and
Because I'd like to
Doreen
see
in
that.
IT. So we meet monthly to look at different things around this tool, so
Right.
we
But
can look into that.
If the software, the tool can do it, I would like to see that data.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Leary.
I know, I've talked to this company before a few times in the past years. So I've requested, and we don't pay extra for it. We get weekly absentee and tardiness, and we get monthly. So can we get the yearly one when the end of the year comes to? I'd like to have the totals for the year. And they do it. I've had them before, you know.
And the price for this is $7,432.09, and it is locally funded.
Any other discussion or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item, 612, is request for approval of letter of intent for submission to RIDE. This is part of our required submission to RIDE for the new high school.
So moved.
So it's presented to you this evening. Mrs. Boland, motion to approve, seconded by Ms. Boatright. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chair, may I at this time, I'd like to thank Assistant Superintendent Dr. Bean and all the leaders that are putting all this hard work into getting high-quality curriculum and making sure our teachers are getting the tools they need to be successful. So I just wanted to acknowledge all the hard work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is 613, request to adjust Pell Elementary School start time for 2019-2020. Is there a motion to accept as presented this evening?
So moved.
Dr. Flowers, is there a second? Ms. Boatright. Principal Westman is here and can answer questions or give us some insight.
Yep. So, last time I was here, you asked me to reach out and do some research with the parents to see how they would feel. So we reached out in a survey, a paper copy. We did it in English and in Spanish to try to reach as many families. We also did a poll on social media. The social media one was kind of tricky because it wasn't a lot of parents voting, and there was a lot of people on it, and some people were voting that didn't even go to the school, so that was kind of weird. So that's why we decided to do a paper copy in English and Spanish to try to get. I was pretty impressed. We had about almost 300 responses, which is pretty good. And it came out 137 yes, 111 voted no, and then 48 where it didn't matter to them either way. So for me, at this point, you know, like I said, I've been watching the buses. This is what I do. I'm at bus duty every day. I really think this is a huge safety issue at this point. The buses, we're housing, at the end of the day, if you ever come here, we're housing about 200 to 300 kids in the gym, in the cafeteria, and technically the contract for the teachers, they can leave at 3 o'clock. Well, by 3 o'clock, we still probably have at least 200 kids here. If we adjust the start time, the last bus that comes is about 3:12. So that's our latest bus. And then some people are saying, oh, they're gonna get home later, but really, we're not gonna keep the buses till 3:15 if they're all loaded and ready to go. We'll send them, because we start dismissal, because we have 900 kids, we started about 10 minutes early. So the idea would be that all the buses would be here, we could just walk the kids right out, we wouldn't have all this chaos, there wouldn't be, you know, supervision issues. You know, when one person is out, who walks that bus out, who covers that bus? But if all the buses were here lined up, we could just walk all the students out, they would get out there safely, there wouldn't be buses backing in because they're late, we wouldn't have students housed here. It's just really chaotic, and I just can't think of another solution. And as I've been timing it, I don't know. And one parent had reached out to me and said, "Oh, my child will get home later." So I looked at the bus that her child was on, and it it comes here at 3:05, so it really she wouldn't even be any later because the bus would leave at the same time that it has been. Where we're also getting a lot of time at the end of the day is because they're in the gym, we all have walkies on, they call us, we go to get the bus walks out. It's a lot of time, it's a lot of shifting of kids, a lot of kids walking out. Whereas if the teacher just had their bus assigned and they walked it right out, seems like it would go a lot smoother. And then also, another issue that I think is really important is the special education buses. We are housing 25 to 30 special education students in the front office because that's the safest place. But if the buses were here on time, if we had a 350, the paras would walk out at the end of the day, they'd be able to escort the students out, as opposed to us housing them in one room with the teachers that stay late. And so it's really hard. And I'm not sure what else to do. This is the best solution that I can come up with at this time. So that's my plea. One of the things I know was a concern to parents about timing, I would be willing to allow parents to drop off still at 8:15. I could probably manage parents. I cannot manage the buses staying on the same schedule because I timed that in the morning. Most buses are here almost all by 3, that would be 500 kids. I can't find the staffing for that. So, but I was trying to find the schedule for the pickup times in the morning when we used to have the 8:45. I could not find it. I don't think the pickup time in the morning is going to be that different. I think it's going to be about 5 minutes, give or take. I don't have the exact amount. So that's why I think this is a good idea. So.
Okay, questions?
Yes.
Mrs. Neary.
Yes, I have a question. Have we, how many buses are here late?
How many buses are here after?
At dismissal?
At 3?
Yeah.
Probably about 7 or 8.
So 7 or 8 buses, which are supposed to be here by 3, are not here.
Yep.
And they trickle in between 3 and 3:12.
Yep. Sometimes, some of the buses, they don't have drivers to cover, I don't know. So sometimes the buses are here as late as 3:30.
Are there buses that are consistently here before 3 or at 3?
There's 3 buses that are consistently here before 3, and then, around 3, probably about 4 or 5 buses. 1, 3, 6. And some days they don't. So about 5 or 6.
Okay, so if we knew what those buses were, could we have just those kids dismissed? So they're here on time, just dismissed for those 5 buses?
As soon as they get here, we dismiss the kids. But how it looks right now is the buses, so when the the K through 1 teachers come down,
Right.
we have all the tables and lined up with the buses.
Right.
The kindergarten teachers like to bring their kids out to the playground because, that's how kindergarten teachers are in first grade. So they drop their buses here, myself and Mrs. McKeon and another teacher are in the cafeteria. Then teachers, as they finish up their classes, they come down to run out buses. And then in the car pickup lane, there's a teacher telling us what buses are here. We're all on radio, and that's how it kind of works. It's a pretty organized system. If the buses were here, it would work a lot faster. So yes, as soon as the buses are here, we load them. Where I'm seeing trouble is we bring those buses out as soon as we know they're here. But then when they park, because all the buses aren't here, then another bus shows up. So as we're walking the buses that are here on timeout, a bus is coming to back in. They can't just pull in because there's already buses like this, so they're backing in, and we're walking students by as we're backing in. That scares me.
Okay,
Right, as we've been doing the schedule for buses, they used to come in a certain order, so we have specific spots where the buses came. Now,
well,
different.
okay, so that was one thing I was going to say. Is it possible to have those 5 buses that come in, let's say 4? Let's be even more pessimistic. Let's say there are 4 that come in on time. Dismiss the kids. Any bus that is not here at 3, put them in a landing zone somewhere else. So
That's how it is right now.
no, but I mean not on our property. Put them on the street, and then you get your 5. Well, on the what's that thing? Hillside, I think it's called. I don't care. You put them there. Once you get your 5, you get the next one to come up, and so that because and other parents have heard me say that, I am unbelievably frustrated that we're gonna change an educational system because a bus company cannot figure out how to do this right. It's unsafe, I agree, it's unsafe for our kids. Let them figure it out. There's a way for them to be along the street while you load the first five leave, the next three come up. They come up, you load those, the next three come up. Why are we changing?
So I understand that, but the thing is even, so say we do that, but I'm still housing 200, 300 kids while those 5 buses are late. Right, and so, yeah, so, agreed, if we could do it that way, but even while I'm waiting for the buses that are late, I'm still housing the kids. I can't put them outside in the rain or whatever, so I'm still housing them, so I just don't know what to do.
Right, and I mean, I agree, I think it's very difficult. It's still the bus company's job to fix it and not us to change our entire system for a whole school because they can't fix it. That's my frustration.
If you'd like to speak,
Yeah,
just identify yourself.
I'm Erin Helene. I work in the school. I run the after-school programs. So part of this problem also is we need all of the buses here at the same time because we need to collect the kids who are supposed to be in our programs. We pull them off of buses every day. That's approximately half the days out of the school year.
And we
If they
miss kids
forget and
outside.
they get on their bus,
Then they
right.
go home. I mean, no, I'm kidding.
No, because we're,
I know,
the parents have signed them over to us.
I know
Yeah.
that K4, you can't get.
Yeah.
Go
ahead, I'm
So
sorry.
that's another issue is that we personally, organizationally need the buses here all at the same time. And none of the buses are supposed to leave until after school and Champion Childcare give the all clear. That we have the kids we're supposed to have. It
And
doesn't
then-
always work, but.
Right, and if the buses were here on time, you could come on 10 minutes early, you could collect your kids, then we
Right.
could walk them out.
Right,
Right.
so you're all saying the same thing. You're saying if the buses were here on time, right?
Question is, why are they not?
Thank you. Why are they not? And why is the bus company not trying to figure out a way to get them here on time?
What's happening when they're picking
Why
up
are we
kids?
changing?
One at a time, please.
Why
One at
are
a
we
time.
changing when they are not on time? That is my fundamental question.
So I have I have a thought about that. Is it physically possible
Yes.
in Newport I can't get here in my car, I can't get down to the admin meeting on Friday and there's not even traffic at that time from 9 to 11 in about 20 minutes. So you're thinking you have to drop off all these kids, come from Fort Adams and come, I don't even know that it's physically possible unless we had more buses, I don't know. I don't even know if you could do that in Newport with the construction, with the bridge traffic. And I'm not defending them that they shouldn't do their job, I'm just saying, when we did the start time change last year, for the third time, no, I'm just kidding, but, did we even really, I guess I didn't think of that but I live it every day now, and I'm thinking, when I drive it myself, I don't even know that the timing is possible to get like that far, I don't know.
I understand that, but they bid for the job, they need to do the job, right? There's also different ways of thinking. My fundamental issue is that we are changing because they cannot do their job. So let them figure out a whole bunch of configurations. Let them run bus number 9, which is a 3-minute ride. Let that one run early and then go catch people from bus number 1 on an express line. Let them give me a solution that does not cost me more money. It is their job to do it. The vote will go how it goes, but you can obviously tell how I feel. It's not about the safety of the children. It's about the fact that we're doing the job of the bus company.
They're gonna go, they had their hands up first. Going this way, we'll be right back to you. Mrs. Boland.
Yeah, so we haven't approved the bus contract, right, for next year? We haven't done that yet.
Next item.
That's the next item. So my question is, do we need to relook at it and incentivize them or de-incentivize them? So if you don't get here on time, you're going to be penalized. I don't know. That's an option too, because and I get it that things have changed and that things are busier in Newport these days, but they can't do it in the middle of the winter either. So, there is a problem, and I don't know that they've been challenged enough to do it. And I know that many parents say they do stops every other block, and so maybe that needs to be changed too.
Mrs. Boland.
I understand the concerns that are being expressed, but I have to say that from my understanding, this has been going on for most of the year and it hasn't changed. And I think we're about to approve a bus schedule with the same bus company at this point in time. So, you know, we can say we want something to change, but that doesn't make it change. And I think that from Tracy's standpoint, Mrs. Westerman has been working with the bus company the entire year to try to make it work. And so I do believe that we need to, I mean, it would be nice if it could change, but we've already, you know, we've added buses, we've done a lot of things to try to
They have no incentive to change. They have none. Because we're
Let her
changing.
finish, let her finish.
I'm going to support this change because I think it's, you know, with all the effort she has made, but I don't think it's appropriate to have all those kids running around in the school department knowing this happens all the time. Something has to change, and we do have the ability to make something change when the bus system hasn't been able to achieve it in months. So that's going to be my vote.
Dr. Flowers.
Okay, here I am speaking from experience again. Even when we had a lot of the so-called neighborhood schools and then we started moving the kids around, it seems to me there are a lot of variables. Are the students, and I'm not looking for an answer tonight, but this is something we might consider. If they're dealing, even with high school students, are they there when they are supposed to be picked up at their bus stops in the morning? Or does the driver have to wait while someone comes down the street? Whether it's kids at Rogers, Thompson, or here. Especially some of the very young ones, parents will walk them up and wait for the bus to come. Same thing when it's time to leave. I've been just as guilty myself saying, oh my God, we gotta get those kids out to the buses, and if you're dragging your feet, and it can happen. This can happen for any of a number of reasons. So, are the little passengers, or not so little ones, are they ready to be picked up in the morning and even to get out to the bus at dismissal? These are just some thoughts. There are a lot of variables that can affect the timeliness of the bus arrivals. The weather, it seems like every street gets dug up, and to get those vehicles around some of these corners is tough. We've been talking a couple of days now, just among us, like it seems that they stop every few hundred yards. Maybe I know it's happened in the past, there's been a move to cut down on some of the bus stops, and then the calls come into the main office, the superintendent will hear complaints because the child had to walk maybe a distance that would not be safe for some of the younger ones. Your special ed students, you'll have some who they have to have assistance boarding and getting off. There's just so many variables. It doesn't matter what the name of the bus company. I think I mentioned to the superintendent one time, watch how late buses arrive on Fridays. The beer trucks are in town. We used to, when I was down in Underwood, we said, oh, the beer trucks are in. Took forever, Friday afternoons, sometimes 45 minutes we'd have to wait. So this is, I think it's the nature of the community. I'm not making excuses, I'm looking for some of the reasons. Ideally, you'd have a certain number of buses allocated to each school. It's not going to happen. We could never afford it. That would double our budget. But I just think these are some areas that have to go on. Yes, I think it's the bus company has to sit down, and I guess they must do that in the summer, to look where their ridership is located. But even at that, at the beginning of the year, again, from experience, first few days, mom or dad or someone drive the kids to school, and then all of a sudden, they're getting on the bus. And as you mentioned, you have to corral the little ones, and they forget that they get on the bus. It might be just one particular, some kind of a planning. Someone says, I'll take the ones who are staying, and you have all your lists. It's not easy, I can imagine. I know what it's like. So, I mean, these are just some points that I think have to be taken in consideration. I don't see it as the total responsibility of the bus company. I can see Mrs. Westman is trying very hard to get some kind of sense out of this. You had a majority of people who either said, yeah, go ahead and change it, or do whatever you want. But still, now, all of a sudden, we're getting communications from people who say, no, I don't want it. So, I don't have an answer, but I'm just looking at some reasons, that's all.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Leary.
thank you. To me, this bus company is like the gang that can't shoot straight. And I have no faith and no trust in this bus company at all. And next time we're going to vote to extend their contract. Well, you know how I'm going to vote in a minute. So I cannot support this thing if I'm going to inconvenience even 111 parents that responded of the 300. I cannot support this.
So I just want to say one last thing before you vote.
Well, I was going to speak. but
Oh,
you-
I'm sorry. I thought you were done.
I
I'm
can
sorry.
speak after you.
I
That's
am
fine.
sorry.
Go right ahead.
I'm sorry. I thought you were done. I'm sorry.
No, go right ahead.
Though I agree that the bus company should be held accountable, the thing is this has been going on. This isn't the first year this has been going on. This has been going on for 2 years, 3 years, and so although they have not fixed it, and we live here, until you're here every day living it, and no one's gonna, it's not changing. This is the only way that doesn't cost money that it can change for the better, because every day, while we're trying to make the bus company do what they're supposed to, which I agree they should, that is not what I'm saying, we're still it's still crazy here, and still the students are going out and it's unsafe. So this is a solution that is easy, and it wasn't totally opposed by the parents, and so this would fix a problem until we can do something to make the bus company do what they're supposed to do. That's all. Right now, we live this every day, and it's scary, and it's hard. So that's all I just want to say.
Backing into spaces is.
Yeah.
So I was just going to say, my concern with it, I support you 100%. I think it's a great idea. I know you have a safety issue. My concern is that we're going to affect 900 students, and I don't have 3 parents out in the audience to talk about it for or against it. And it concerns me for some reason. I don't know why they don't care, and I don't know why they're not here, but I can't support it based on the fact that I support the idea. I just don't know why we don't have 50 angry parents. And I know you've worked hard. I know you did your poll.
I put it out on social media that we're voting on it tonight.
I know you're working hard, but I just don't understand the fact, and we did this once before, and it's that fool me, one shame on me. We did this once before with nobody in the crowd, and the next meeting we had standing room only because we did something. I just don't know why parents don't seem to want an input into the time that their students come to school. So I'm not comfortable voting to support it this evening. I think it's something we have to do. I think there has to be an answer, but for me, personally, I can't vote to support it without I just don't know why there's not 50 parents out there looking at me.
I don't know. I put it out on social media that we were voting it today.
I think you've done, I just don't understand. There's something philosophical. I always think the same problem. We have issues that we deal with every school committee meeting, and I don't have 40 people in the audience, and I don't think they're home watching tonight because they won't see it for a week. So, again, that's just me, and that's just my thought. So, Ms. Boatwright.
The one thing I think is really crucial is that a decision is made, because if we don't make a decision and we kick it down the can, we're in August and then people can't plan. I really think that decisions have to be made, and there are consequences to the decisions, because if we say, if we say we're not going to do it, we're going to have the same problem, or we're going to have to add a lot of buses, or like 7 new buses to have those buses be here on time. If they haven't been able to fix it in 3 years, and this problem's been going on, we have to have a bus company, okay? This is a decision that we're going to be making tonight as well. So I'm confused by what you actually think voting no will do. That's my question.
I'm just not comfortable voting yes with one parent sitting in the audience looking at me. I'm sorry, that's just me.
And
That's my reason.
But I wonder if they feel like they gave their input this way. I mean, they gave their input on paper.
Just giving you my rationale for my vote this evening. That's all I'm doing.
From my
If you'd like to
perspective,
speak, please do.
Sure.
doing? My name's Chris Rosa. I have 2 kids here at Pell. I never received any paperwork or anything to vote on the bus schedule change at all. And I have 2 kids, one in 3rd grade and one in 1st grade.
So I'm sorry that you didn't. I sent them to every teacher, so I
know,
apologize.
But I'm just letting you know, I never received the one thing. And I think we keep talking about the bus company. The bus company, it's the bus company's problem. We are gonna cost parents money because they have to get daycare earlier, and we're just letting the bus company just go. So before you approve any contract for the bus company, you should figure out the solution and just stop hiring the same bus company. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion, comments? Sure, come right up.
So in after school, we have our own particular dealings with the bus company, and I just want to make sure that people know that they are under new management this year. And I feel like that this year in particular has been a more outstanding problem than previous years. I don't know if you guys agree.
I would agree.
But yeah, I think the new management has had a lot to do with the issues that we've been having.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
And
But
they're not supportive of, you know, when we have issues of students that are missing.
So, which goes back to my original point, what incentive would they have to change their behavior if we change our time? What is their incentive? They have zero, they've had none for the past 3 years because they have a contract, we've added buses, we pay them more, and now we're thinking, fine, we'll just change our schedule. They have zero incentive, not a one, to fix this problem. They don't have one. They don't. We keep bending. And I also have 2 kids here, and I know it's unsafe, and I know you're trying, and I know you're trying really, really hard, and I support being the safety of the children, but ultimately, if we bend on this, what stops them from doing it next year? Nothing. Because then they'll be here at 3:20 or 3:25 because something else will have come up, or something else would happen, or maybe not at Pell, but then it'll be at Thompson, or it'll be at Rogers. I just don't see how we hold them accountable. So
who is going to hold the bus company accountable? So while we're here, who is?
Let's put it in the
Dr.
context.
Flowers has had a hand up. I'm gonna go there first. I'm glad to come back to you. Dr. Flowers.
I've been on, this is my 11th year now. Mrs. Bolin and I got on at the same time. This isn't the only bus company we've had. We got rid of another company, and let's face it, we got rid of them because some people were very unhappy about various things that were going on there. Several years ago, 3 of us on the school committee, 2 who are not here right now, we were here from the first day of school until Thanksgiving week to help out in the morning. And I'll tell you, some days, I mean, it was more than just misty out there, and it took forever for some of the buses to come. And in the afternoon too. We take turns coming back at dismissal. And there's always that one group that had to wait way down for the buses to come. You have to pick up the kids. And sometimes they'd be outside waiting. So this is nothing new. I'm not saying it's not a little more convoluted in some places, but if you don't want to vote for this particular bus company's contract extension, so be it. But you're going to have, I really think you're having the same issues with the points that I mentioned. The traffic problems in town, I mean, every day you have to read to see what streets you can't get through. You have to make sure that the kiddies are ready to be picked up when they're supposed to be, or get out front when they're supposed to be. It's just a lot of things. And for them to settle down once they get on the bus. I know what I've seen.
Whatever, it's done. I'm just done.
That's the end of my.
Mrs. Boland.
I'll make this real quick. I just think before we approve the contract tonight, that we maybe need to wait and try to add something to put it, to put it in there, that they need to start getting the buses here, on time, A, and B, I've also heard we have a real big problem with them going too early and leaving a bus stop. I've had 2 letters of complaint about that, and leaving kids at the bus stop. And I know that when we approved it 3 years ago, we talked very specifically about that has to be something that they do. They cannot ever, if the bus time is 8:12, they can't be there at 8:11 and leave. So that's another thing that needs to get done.
Also, another thing, if you're thinking about approving, one thing that has happened several times this year is they let kindergarten and first grade students off without a parent there. That we have red tags for a reason. They're not supposed to let the student off if they have a red tag without a parent being there. They've let them off at wrong stops. So that's another thing that happened several times this year.
I have one last question, actually. When are the students dismissed from their classrooms around like 2:45, 2:50?
Nope, 3 o'clock. So 2:48 we start dismissal. 2:48 we start dismissal.
Okay, this is gonna sound crazy. Can we dismiss them at 3? Because then more I'm just saying, can we not, people are smiling and laughing at me like I'm saying something stupid. Can we not dismiss them at 3 o'clock? The school day ends at 3. So why can't we dismiss the children at 3, giving more time for buses to get here? I don't know. I'm genuinely asking. I'm sorry?
I can't.
Right. The contract reads that Teacher's Day ends, an appropriate amount of time before and after, though, is what it says, in order to get the job done. Is it not pretty similar?
That's correct.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, so if the job is, we're trying to talk about safety of kids here. I know. Don't kill me.
All right, well, I'm sorry. I didn't realize I was wading into a contract issue. I just know the school day ends at 3. Let's dismiss the children at 3, and then we don't have this thing where we're moving an entire school to 3:15. I didn't realize there was all going to be contract issues about it, so I'm done. That's really frustrating then. I didn't know. Go ahead.
Dr. Jermaine.
Thank you. So we do have a problem with the bus company as far as the ability to deliver and get to the school on time. The 30 minutes in between is not necessarily very prudent, and I think going forward at another time when we have discussions about school start times and end times, we need to take that into consideration. Other bus companies, and to Dr. Flowers' point, other companies, and way back when I was a teacher, bus companies do have difficulty getting through traffic, times of the year, weather conditions, everything. But it is not acceptable for the amount of time that Pell has had to put up with this. So whatever your decision is, we will sit down with the bus company again and try to think of a way on how we can look at the routes, because there is some consideration into that as to whether or not the stages before they arrive Pell in the afternoon may be part of the delay. And we can look at that with more software accessibility. The second part to all of that is that we do have to consider possibly a way, to Mrs. Neary's point, of how and when we dismiss our students, and maybe we need to look at that process as well. Ms. Westman, Principal Westman, runs an excellent ship here. Everything's very organized, and it's like Disney World as far as moving people, putting them out on time, and making sure they're safe. And their safety is their number one concern, and we have had some very strong concerns about the safety at times. Thank you.
Any other questions, discussions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Nay. Next item on the agenda is,
Motion failed, Mr. Gomes?
the motion obviously failed, Mr. Leary, yes. 5 to 1.
5 to 1.
The next item on the agenda is 6.14, request for approval of Addendum 1 to Durham Bus Services Agreement. Is there a motion to accept the proposal as presented? Ms. Boatright, is there a second?
Second.
Dr. Flowers. This is a addendum, a bus service contract agreement predicated on a agreement that was struck between the schools and the bus company for past due amounts, as well as services going forward for the next school year. Is there any questions? Seeing, Ms. Bola?
Yes, just real quick, I just wonder, you know, you said you can have talks with them, but something's got to get done about, you know, them really working on the issues that we have with them. And I don't know, is it too late to get it in the contract, obviously?
It may be too late at this point in time, yes, but this is a 1 year only. If we do not come up with an agreeable arrangement, and we're only exercising the 1 year option. We can go out to bid in January of 2020 if we're not satisfied.
Just a moment, Mr. Galvin.
Mr. Chairman, you asked me to review this to make sure it reflected the agreement of the school committee and Durham. Just one suggested change in paragraph 3. At the end, the last phrase of that, I would suggest removing the words "and scope of services" from this addendum. With that removal of those words, I will be accepting of the language, and it reflects. I defer to management as to the numbers. The superintendent has indicated to me that it's been checked and double-checked, confident with their reflection of the numbers set forth. But in terms of the language, they've accepted all the changes we proposed. This change that they proposed is acceptable except for those 4 words, and that would be my advice to you on those words.
So there would be a motion in order to amend the approval as presented to the, as amended by Mr. Galvin. Okay, those who made the motion agree to that being changed to Mr. Galvin's, per Mr. Galvin's changes to the contract.
And if I may, one other comment, Mr. Chairman. The remedies you have for failure to comply or provide the services that you've agreed to remain the same as with the original contract. And that kind of remedy is always a difficult type of remedy, but if they're not performing, theoretically, ultimately, you have the recourse to go out with an RFP, get a new company in. If it's more, you seek damages from the non-performing company. The remedies remain the same. They're difficult to achieve and enforce. This particular addendum resolves a dispute relative to payment that's essential to the committee, but your remedies relative to non-performance remain the same.
Okay, questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Leary.
If Mr. Galvin, or somebody could explain the finances, it'd be really good for the public and for press that's here.
On the actual numbers, I think I'd defer to the superintendent on that, Mr. Leary, if I could.
And I have some comments afterwards.
The Newport School Department has held back $390,263.22 due to disagreements about services being provided. We are agreeing to pay that now after discussions, and going forward, the Newport School Department will receive $125,837.82 for the month of May 2019 and the month of June 2019, each month respectively. And the department will be responsible for just the balances due for each of those months, May and June. After that, the agreement is completed, and we will move forward as the original contract has been signed. As I mentioned earlier, we will exercise the first year of the option, with also the ability for the Newport School Department to review the busing schedules routing and to implement and work with the company to make any changes we deem appropriate and better suited for our students and families. If we do not come to any agreement by October 1st of 2019, we will, and we don't negotiate any final negotiations by 12/31/2019, a new RFP for scope of services will be issued by the Newport Public Schools.
Thank you. Mr. Leary?
Yeah, I have a couple comments and questions, Mr. Chairman, thank you. So, could you explain, Mrs., I'm trying to think how to say this. Could you explain how they went from 12 buses to 14 or 13 to 15? I forget the number, I'm sorry.
It was from 13 to 15, Mr. Leary.
13 to 15.
During the second year of contract, while we were, a new business manager had come on board, the business manager noticed that there was an overbilling occurring. And it was during that time that the Newport Public Schools held back any overcharges of what had happened that year, the previous year, and during the years of 18 and 19. So we came to an agreement after negotiations, and this was the results that I just read.
Okay, so that being said, nobody's watching the buses when they come up to school. If there was 13, we're supposed to have, and 15 show up. We just had a huge conversation with the principal, and I'm not blaming her at all, but they said she knows all the buses here, and all of a sudden, we got 15 buses showing up and nobody knew it all year? I mean, that's a question I don't expect to have an answer right now, but it's a question that bothers me. This whole thing, to me, this is my generic comments, smells bad. It smells real bad, you know? And I don't know what to tell you, except for I won't be supporting this no matter trying to get back the money to get even with them or not. It just, we should put everybody, go to court with these people, take them to court, see what happens. We have a contract, the contract says 13 buses, they increased to 15, and we're paying them now. And basically, they're gonna pay us back. You know, what it comes down to is the first year we paid them, the last year when they're not paying him, 1 year we're kind of splitting it and giving his money back. And we're gonna end up all right with the money in the end, but it just smells real bad. I'd rather go to court and put everybody under oath and have an investigation and see what happened. Because this bus company can't deliver, and we're going to extend the contract, but not with my vote, you won't.
Thank you. Any other questions? Comments, questions? All right, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Thank you.
I'm abstaining.
So, I didn't hear all this, so I think it was 3 ayes,
I said aye.
4, I don't know.
4
but
ayes,
Let's do by show of
1
hands, we'll go back to
abstention.
the vote. So all those in favor signify by raising your hand, aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? And 1 abstention. Mrs. Neary abstained. Votes 4 to 1
Thank you.
with 1 abstention. The next item, 6:15, has been asked to be pulled from the agenda this evening. 6:16 is request for approval to issue an RFP for a performance audit. It's been asked for by Mr. Leary.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, in essence of time, you're doing a very good job with this agenda, with a tremendously long agenda here. And thank you for moving it along. I'm going to just table this tonight and ask if the superintendent, for the next month's, well, actually be August, whatever, next month's meeting, that we put 2 things, make it available for the members of the committee. One would be the Berkshire report, and the second would be the Collins report. Berkshire, I forgot the date, but Collins was in 2014. This is a performance audit. If we had done it, I would recommend, I still highly recommend a forensic audit, but this would be a performance audit to look at our programs, look at what we have, and look at staffing. Again, it'd just be a discussion item, and it's for next year anyway, so I'm not worried about it tonight. And essence of time, I'd just like to table it and move it to August meeting, whatever it is. Is that appropriate, Mr. Galvin?
Certainly available to you to do.
Thank you.
So I'm just confused as to what we are tabling. The
Tabling
request for
whole-
the performance
tabling-
audit, or
yeah.
do you want,
The performance audit, for the whole thing. So the 6.16 would table.
okay, at the request of
And
Mr.
then-
Leary?
And then
There's
they
a-
would get the Berkshire report to everybody online, and also the Collins report, which are 2 reports that were done.
So, Mr. Galvin, just so I'm clear, that does require a second and a
Should
vote
be-
to table?
It should be. yes.
Correct. So there's a motion by Mr. Leary to table 616 until the August meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Dr. Flowers, a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Next item, 7 is discussion. The 7.1 is private school transportation, and Dr. Jermaine this is her discussion item.
Hi, good evening again. Yes, I just wanted to put this on the agenda just to keep the school committee informed as to my discussions with the private schools. By Rhode Island regulation, we are required to transport our students that live in Newport to private schools within a certain region. And one of the things we have, and this does go to a budget concern, is if the Newport Public Schools is not in session and the private schools are in session, there's a desire from the private schools for us to continue to bus them on those days that we are not servicing our own students. And I have started to have the conversations with the headmasters and with the principals of the schools. And I have also polled my fellow superintendents on this, and it goes back and forth within different districts. Some districts bus children, even though their own schools may not be in session, and others do not. They treat it as a snow day. When we have snow days, we do not transport any of our private or non-public schools. So I just wanted to put that on the radar screen from you. At this point in time, I do not have a recommendation. I want to research it a little bit more. But I am trying to work collaboratively with the non-public and private schools to see if we can align our calendars as much as possible so we can avoid any extra transportation costs in these areas. And that's why I just wanted to inform you, and I wanted to also be on TV and inform the public as well, so the non-private and private school parents are aware of this. And I know their headmasters and principals are sharing this information with them. So thank you.
Any questions for Dr. Jermaine? Seeing none, we'll move on to 7.2, designation of funds for maintenance of buildings. Mr. Leary.
Mrs. Jermaine, let's give you a little more face time. Why don't you explain the state thing first, and I'll go forward.
Okay, I'm going to have to pull up some
Yeah,
things.
take your time. I'll go.
All right, I'm going to let you talk first.
Yeah, good. Hold up. Give you a little more face time here. So, my concern here is that, and I'll start with Mr. Galvin's quote. Mr. Galvin, correct me if I'm wrong. The care, the custody, and the control of the buildings is our responsibility. The city owns the property, but it's our responsibility. So, I totally understand and give Ms. Jermaine some time. Obviously, she wasn't prepared for this. It's in the minutes of, in the computer. I'm really concerned that they haven't been keeping the buildings up like we had. About 10 years ago, maybe more, I was on a committee. We put a 1% money aside. When Thompson was falling apart, we were doing a building, we put 1% of our budget aside to repair buildings. And we'd spent a lot of money fixing all these buildings up. We got around ones that we even sold. And then my best example I always use, if the city has it now, and the Thompson steps fell apart about 5 or 6 years after they opened up, they'd probably say, let's re-cement it, which is fine. But we had the money, and we put granite steps in. They will never fall apart again, because we had the money on our side of the budget, and we had the care, the custody, and the control to do that. So I think it's important that we take 5%, half of what the city, they're gonna require us, the state's requiring to put 1% this year, and I think, Ms. Jermaine, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not sure with that, 1% next year of our budget has to be put away for maintenance of the schools, okay? So I'm saying, let's put half that money in our budget, 0.5%, that we have control of, that if we need to fix something, we don't have to go beg, borrow, and cry to the city that we need to get it fixed. Because I can walk around this building right now and show you things that need to be fixed. And I'm not gonna list them. And I can walk around Thompson and show you things that need to be fixed. And if we let these things go and they don't take care of them, we're the ones at fault. And I just can't accept that. And I didn't vote to take it out. It was taken out 3 or 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and given on the city side. We good, Mrs. Jermaine, or?
We're all set. Thank you.
It's way past my
Nice
talking
job,
about.
Mr. Leary. Okay. So in June of 2018, the General Assembly did pass something that does require our districts to put aside money. It's a passage of Article 9. And the LEAs, that's us, the local districts, annual facility maintenance and expenditures must meet one of these 3 requirements: a minimum of 3% of the operating budget. It must be devoted to maintenance. And it's a phase-in process, 1% in this fiscal year 2019, 1.5 in 2020, 2% in 2021, 2.5 22, and then 3% by 2023. A minimum of 3% replacement value. This will be phased in over the next 5-year period as well, and it follows the same percentage increase, 1% for 2019, 1.5, 2, 2.5, and 3. Newport has, along with all the other communities, been given a chart, provided a chart about what they should be planning on as far as maintenance expenditure targets. And for Newport, in 1% of their operating budget, for instance, $404,948 in the 2019 budget, their replacement value is $1.477078. This, and there's also a $3 per square foot requirement. This is something that, as a school district right now, and when this law was passed, we did have a conference call with the city as well. Mr. Nicholson, Joe Nicholson, and Ms. Laura Citron were involved on the phone, and I believe some members were on the phone, school committee and others along with me. And we did have this conversation about what the requirements would be going forward. Long story short, the city and the school side are both clearly aware of this requirement. We also have been able to meet the needs just based upon a water break we had this year at Rogers High School, unexpected water break, and some of the other repairs we've had to put into place. Also, going forward with the capital improvements we foresee in the possibly near future, I believe our district, working with the city, will be prepared to have the minimum require amounts. But that's what it is, and it is going to be a joint collaboration with the city as we move forward implementing this new law.
Thank you.
Terrific, thank you.
So if we could, if anybody's any comments, I don't know, but if we could move this to an action item for August meeting, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure, Ms. Boatright.
One of the things that was on previous school committee records going back a couple years was a facilities report, which I think that has to come back, and I know that Dr. Jermaine has been working to try to get that back on the for us with Mr. Harb. So part of it is also us tracking it, I think, Mr. Leary, is really being on top of what the issues are and making sure that we identify them and we work with the city collaboratively. Hopefully in the liaison meeting we can start doing some of that, but I think it's really our responsibility to be on top of it. I would not be so supportive of taking it out of our budget. We are already very tight on our budget, and we don't need to be going into the red, but we do need to be fixing our buildings and keeping them up to date. So, thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Item 8.1 is approval of minutes. I believe Mr. Leary would, has a
8.1,
request.
May 14th to 19th. I want to correct the vote on that one. It's a mistake.
Just slow down so Mrs. Nash can catch up with you.
So it's May 14th, 8.1. It's
The
It's
Executive
about the
order.
bus contract. In 2.1 under there, Ms. Nash says the committee voted 5-0 to approve a conceptual agreement between Newport School Committee and Durham Bus Company. You can tell from my comments tonight, I wasn't one of the 5-0s, I was 4-1. So just make, just make a motion to accept with that amendment.
This present was
Is that correct, Mr. Galvin?
1, 2,
Yes, you make a motion to amend that needs to be seconded and accepted.
so it was
Okay.
4 to 1.
So a motion to amend, May 14th, 2019, 2.1 from 5-0 to 4.1, and I'm being the one. Is second?
Oh,
Is
yeah.
there a motion,
yeah.
second to
Oh,
Mr.
yeah,
Leary's
second,
motion?
yeah, the second, yeah.
Mrs. Neary seconded the motion to amend the meetings per Mr. Leary. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Next item is the, so now we
Now
would
you-
need approval of 8.1 as presented. Approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Motion made by Dr. Flowers, seconded by
Ms. Boland,
Mrs. Boland.
but
Any,
any discussion? I'd like to recuse myself from.
we're on 8.1.
Eight
We're
point
on
one.
the minutes. Oh, I'm sorry.
We're just trying to get the minutes done.
Okay.
8.1, approval of the minutes, motion made by Dr. Flowers, seconded by Mrs. Boland. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? 8.2 is personnel action. Is there a motion to approve the personnel action as presented?
Second.
Motion made to approve, Mrs. Neary, seconded by Dr. Flowers. Mrs. Boland.
I'd like to recuse myself from A4.
Mrs. Boland's requesting to recuse herself from A4.
Mr. Chairman?
Any other discussion?
If Mrs. Jermaine could, do the appointments at 6.2, explain them, money, what budget, what year budget they're in.
6.2.
6.2A, thank you.
8.2.
And then 6.2E, the retirement. I want to recognize the person that retired.
It's a recension of
This is
retirement.
8.2.
Oh, it's recension, I'm sorry.
I don't know which numbers are you asking for?
6.2A, the appointments.
8.2.
What's
Eight,
6?
sorry,
Yeah.
it does say 6.2. I'm sorry, it is 8.2, right? It says 6.2, see? But
Yeah,
8.2.
that's an old-
It's a misprint,
yeah.
so it's
Mine on
8.2A.
8.2A, you want to go through all 30 positions where
No,
the
no,
money?
no, the appointments, the new appointments.
He wants
But they-
8.2E, I think, for retirements.
And 8.2E.
The
retirement.
appointments are budgeted in budget 2019-20. That's where they're funded.
And
Most, if not all, of the ESY appointments are through summer school or the IDEA funding, which is a grant.
any of these new positions?
No, none of them are new positions, except, let me look, on the top one, that one is no longer a union position because of confidentiality, the technology support. We have a retirement.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah, this one here.
yep.
Because remember, someone
And
else is, yeah.
the next three, the custodians, they're all, were they retirement, how's that work?
That, because of our budget constraints, we did not fill positions this year, and we, so we had to hold off until July budget.
So none of them are new, they're all the
Correct.
retirees, correct, right,
Correct. Not that I'm aware of, Mr. Leary, no.
right, so, and I know we talked about this, I did an email, you're working on it. I need to see that list of, how you got people, it's confusing, the retiree column, new hire column, remember I requested?
Okay,
Yeah,
yes.
so we need to
And
do that.
HR is working on that for you.
Right, so
Okay.
that would help out, I see
All
that,
right.
where we're at. Thank you.
Some
All right,
people
thank
can
you.
transfer.
Well,
Leave of absence.
Isn't that information on the form that we get?
It is on the form, it's not in a chart.
No, Mr. Chairman, I think what happened last year.
He's looking for a chart, I believe.
We hired more positions than we told that was there. It looked like we had laid off people, but we hired 3 or 4 more positions.
Sounds good. Okay, so we have a motion to approve the consent, the personnel actions 8.2 as proposed. We have a motion with Mrs. Boland recusing herself from A4. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 8.3 is request for home approval of invoices and requisitions. Is there approval to, is there a motion to approve as presented?
Yes.
Ms. Boatright, seconded by Mrs. Neary. Discussion on 8.3. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? 9 is correspondence. We have 2 correspondence to accept. One from Smiles. We have a Smile newsletter correspondence and a Verizon wireless communication. Is there a motion to approve the correspondence as presented?
So moved.
Motion made by Dr. Flowers, seconded by Ms. Boatright. Any discussion?
I do have a question.
Okay, Ms. Boatright.
Sorry, I thought I sent this in an email, but does this mean with will we respond to this as a legal matter, I guess?
Which is this, the
The
Verizon?
Verizon letter.
We've been in process with them. T-Mobile is on the verge of facilitating the removal of their facility. Verizon is on the verge of getting to that stage as well. So this is a continuing interaction with them in order to achieve that outcome.
But what it's saying is that they will be there through the end of 2020, the end of the year. in this
I didn't see
letter.
that.
That's what I read in that letter.
I will need to look
I
at the
mean, I think we accept the letter, but I want to make sure that we're going to be responding to it and understanding what the
You can-
pricing implications
You
are.
can be assured that Mr. Galvin
He's
will
on
be
it.
responding to
We'll,
that.
we'll respond, but I didn't see a reference to the end of the year,
Yeah.
so.
Thank you.
Yes,
Make sure.
you can rest assured, he'll be responding.
Okay.
Mr.
Now
Chairman,
he's even.
Mr. Leary,
if we can notify the neighbors when they take this down, I think it'd be appropriate.
we were just waiting for dates. We do plan to notify the neighbors once the work, we know when the work is gonna commence.
Thank you very much.
That is the plan. Any other questions, concerns? Seeing none, then the motion to accept. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next item, 10, reports from superintendent and staff. 10.1, expenditure and revenue reports. You could certainly,
These are just reports,
motion to
yeah.
accept the reports as presented would be in order.
So moved.
Dr. Flowers. Second by Mrs. Neary. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, as far as the expenditure revenue part, I could spend hours talking about, but just a couple comments. I feel like with this whole budget thing, that I'm on Wheel of Fortune. And let's spin the wheel and see where we are now. I'm looking at a couple of articles in the paper going back. So in February, which is written by Andy Long, says that the in the March 26th workshop, colleague deficit projections range from 360,000 to 2.5 million. And then the next month, it says we're at 475. And then it told the city council that possibly we could be having a fund balance. And now we're 230,000 in the hole. I feel like it's Wheel of Fortune. Let's spin the wheel and see what we get this month.
Let's say anything.
Okay, that's your
That's
question?
my comment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
One little comment.
Dr. Flowers.
One little comment, right, looking at the superintendent's report on the strategic plan that's all color-coded, and it's so nice, there's just a lot of yellow and green.
Yes,
And I think
There.
that is great. I don't see any blue, I don't see any red.
that's right.
Yes,
We're moving along.
congratulations. That was
Strategic plan is moving along
Very
smoothly.
strategically, that's good.
We're just waiting for
These
her to
things
finish.
are
Oh, I
important.
see your hand up. I'll be right there. Are you all set?
I'm all done.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
I just,
Mrs. Boland.
I just wanted to make, let everyone know that Odette, and her last name is, came this evening. She's our interim fill-in. like Save Us.
Odette Bradfield, yes, is
Bradfield,
here.
yes.
And she's been doing an amazing job.
And
And
she
she's
came
staying
tonight
on
and
top
been
of
sitting there
everything.
all
I think
night,
she wants
yes.
to stay at her camera range right now. So she's staying over there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion is to accept as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next item is 11.1, meeting dates and agenda items. Wednesday, June 12th, Newport City Council meeting, 6:30, Newport City Hall. Budget discussion will be on that docket. Monday, June 17th, Newport School Committee, Council 94 Subcommittee Negotiation Session, 4 p.m. in NACTech Room 900. And Monday, must be Tuesday, I'm not good, but I know that must be Tuesday, June 18th, Newport School Committee special meeting at 5 p.m. And I believe that'll be for the approval of our operating budget for the fiscal year 1920. Those are the meeting dates and agenda items for next month, with the exception of Mr. Leary's request to put his audit or performance audit on. That is it for 11 into 12, executive session. I believe Mr. Leary has a request.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Mr. Galvin, I have a question before I do this. It says we have discussion of negotiations with TN and House 94. Is it possible the committee could just go in there by themselves and discuss this, just the 5, 6 of us?
Say that again, Mr. Chairman. I mean, Mr. Leary.
Is it possible that it just says discussion of negotiations? So is it possible that the committee, the 6 of us, could go in executive session by ourselves and just discuss things for a few minutes, or no?
As opposed to who else?
As opposed to you and anybody else?
You don't need me. It's your session.
Yep.
You as a school committee control who you invite into executive session, and you can do that if you so desire.
Okay, so I need a motion for that? How's that work?
You would like to read the motion? We can do it, Mr. Leary. You can make it and read it at the same time.
Got the motion, anybody?
You have to read it right there. It's in front of you, I believe, isn't it?
Got to say anything? Adjournment, on the adjournment?
No, executive session.
Oh, okay, yeah. So the school committee may seek to convene, if warranted, executive session under jurisdiction of Rhode Island State Law, Chapter 46, 42-46-5, Exception A1, any discussion of job performance, character, or physical or mental health of a person or persons, provided that such person or persons affected shall have been notified in advance in writing, or advised that they may be required that discussion be held in open meeting, and that A2, sessions pertaining to collective bargaining or litigation, or work sessions pertaining to collective bargaining or litigation.
Is there a second to Mr. Leary's motion?
Second.
Mrs. Boland. We will be convening into executive session, and we will report back after that.
I think you have to vote.
We have to vote.
I voted, like,
Oh, all those, okay, I'll vote.
They're
I'm
not
sure.
gonna vote on anything.
Okay, all those in favor of moving into executive session signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay,
Well, actually, I am, but I'll go along.
okay, so let's try that again for the record so we can do the vote. All those in favor signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
Oh,
Aye.
aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion is 5-1. We'll be convening into executive session, and we'll report out after the session.
Thank you. Good job, nice and quick. We had a long
Yeah,
agenda.
I know, we had 25
Long agenda.
minutes and it would be,
I know, it's a long agenda tonight.
well,